Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So without further ado, let's start watching the progress on 3D modeling Kakariko Village. Let's watch it together in 3, 2, 1. So without further ado, we're getting right into it. You can see that I'm using Outset Island as a kind of basis, the way its houses are shaped. You know, and I don't want like places that look like Outset to just be scattered all over the world. I want uniqueness, but we're gonna get into that in a second. But I do think that those houses are really close to feeling the way that a house in Kakariko Village should look. For clarity, I'm recreating Kakariko Village from Breath of the Wild. It's Sheikah Town, where Impa and Paya live. For clarity, because there are so many different Kakariko villages, and that's part of Zelda, baby. You know, like I mentioned in the last video I made, I think it's just there's several, and we just gotta live with it. Yeah, so I'm starting just by like changing the it's grandma's house from the Wind Waker, but I'm just mirroring that so it's symmetrical. So the porch is on both sides, and then I'm using that as the basis for the main. Do they call them like Sheikah chiefs? Is that the word? I'm not sure that that's the right word. Or chieftain, but Impa's house. So while I'm modeling, I'd also for reference, so y'all know, this voiceover is recorded in post. We're all watching 2 hours of work condensed into about 15 minutes. So this is like packing more work into a single video than I've shown before on some of these progress modeling videos. And that's just something I'm experimenting with, because I've gotten some positive comments about like the Hiteno Village videos, which were much more just in the moment. Or you're watching it live is what I mean to say. And this is more, you know, just recording the voiceover in post is a little more experimental. And there could be room for doing both, because I like the pace of just like talking as I'm modeling and talking through that, and that offers certain insights. But I also think it's nice to do a video like this where you can see much more get done in a single episode. So while we're watching the time lapse, I also want to kind of read through some comments and kind of respond to those. And some of these I've already typed out a response, but I'd like to kind of read them and talk about them because I think they're good comments, and I really appreciate y'all leaving comments. It really helps inspire me to work on this. I feel like I say that every time, but it's true. You know, it's like I'm very much, I feel like I'm making this project for myself, and it's nice just to see that this inspires y'all and y'all are interested in it. And because it's something I'm interested in, and like for instance, let's get into this comment. This was for me, this was posted a day ago, but this video will probably release a little bit later. But this comment says, "Wind Waker is my childhood game, and I always wanted to explore Hyrule. It just seems so big for no reason. Thank you so much for working on this project." And maybe you hear this a lot, but really you're making people's childhood dreams a reality. And that's so nice to hear. And thank you for commenting that. Because for me, this is something where like, this is fulfilling my dream from being a kid. And even though like we've seen Hyrule in Zelda games since, seeing this version of Hyrule is something I've always wanted to see. And it is so rewarding to kind of bring it to life in this way, and finally take the islands of the Great Sea and finally be able to look under the water to see the entire world of Hyrule in this art style. And for me, it's really rewarding. And I just appreciate you saying that, because I feel exactly the same way. And it's nice to kind of be reminded that there's other Wind Waker fans who want to see this too. You know, I really appreciate you saying that. Also, as you can see in the video, I'm using some extra assets from Ganon's room at the top of the Forsaken Fortress to kind of get some of these Sheikah artifacts, some of that detailing. I like that touch, and I think it adds a lot to the uniqueness of these houses. Just because I'm not really spicing it up a whole lot beyond like the Outset Island kind of base, but I think those extra details add a lot in those the eye image. So yeah, once again, thank you for that comment, and I really appreciate that. Here's one from Vest of Holding. As I'm reading this was also posted a day ago, and I typed out a response, but I also wanted to read it. They said, "Personally, I highly disagree with creating locations from Breath of the Wild here, though that gets into problems I have with the timescales of Breath of the Wild itself and not with you. I have some amateur experience in world building, and man, when you start actually thinking about it, trying to claim that Breath of the Wild should take place at minimum 12,000 years after everything else, while still keeping the locations and settlements as close as they are, is so wild. It makes zero sense. so much would be fixed if they said 1,000 years instead of 10,000. I totally agree. And I really appreciate that comment. And I'm going to read my response as well. I replied, I totally agree. Thanks for commenting. The lore's so messy, but what else is new? For me, I've just made the decision that Hyrule has been made bigger by the developers, and regardless of how much sense it all makes, oh, I used the wrong version of sense. In creating my own version of Hyrule, I don't want to restrict myself to ignoring Breath of the Wild's inclusions, especially given how popular it is. And I stand by that, but yeah, it is really messy, and just the idea that, because 10,000 years is a long time, I'm not sure that there's anything still standing from that long ago, in the real world, maybe, but I don't know. I got to visit Stonehenge for the first time last year, and I think that was from 5,000 years ago. And it's not like it's not the oldest thing, but it's still like, it's mind-blowing how long ago that is, and hardly anything is left of it now. And so yeah, to think that like Hyrule Castle, are we saying that it's 12,000 years old? And it's hard to definitely parse through some of that stuff. And obviously, like, if we want to take the games at face value, we can kind of explain some stuff as like, well, there's different Hyrule Castles. It looks a little different in every game. We don't have to pretend that it's the same structure. And maybe it is like just being built. These different castles are being built in the same place or in different places. And I know there's a lot of theories around that, and kind of following, maybe the idea is like Hyrule Castle is built over here from these games, and they're using this kind of fort as a main base, even with different palaces being built there. Like you see that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild all have this kind of moat or lake around it. Ocarina of Time also has a moat, but that looks like it's much smaller and looks like it's hand put there, while Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker look like the castle was built, on an island in this lake. From my understanding, I don't know, maybe there's some argument with Breath of the Wild there, and definitely comment down below whether you think that moat in Breath of the Wild was man-made, but that's kind of my interpretation. But you can definitely get into those kinds of questions if these are things that Zelda fans think about. But yeah, I mean, the lore is messy, and it's just, when you start trying to apply logic to it, some things it's hard to parse through. And of course, there's just the real world explanations that the developers, as the games went on, they made new things, and as fans, like, that's how it works. That's how creating works. And so there's some things that just like, they exist because the developers made them in a new game. So the thing may not exist in an old game, but that's because the developers kept creating and adding new locations. And I like that. I like that as the game goes on, as the games go on, we see more and more of Hyrule. That we didn't see Hateno Village in any game before Breath of the Wild, but I like Hateno Village, and I like that we get to see it. And I like to think that it's always been there, which is why I added it to this map. And same with this version of Kakariko Village. And I like those inclusions. And because I think that's what I like about the Zelda series, and maybe I've said this before, but I like that the Zelda series is iterative, and it never, I don't know, like, while we sometimes will have like a return to the series roots or whatever, like in general, the Zelda series is known for innovating, innovative. That's the word I was looking for. Like, it's creative, and the developers always do something new. And even when we go back to Hyrule is new every time. And I really appreciate that. And that's really, I think, what I love about the series. I mean, I love so much about the series, but I think that is like that the fact that it changes, and the fact that they're willing to experiment. I think, like, comparing Twilight Princess to Ocarina of Time, right? Because I think a lot of Zelda fans kind of by default, like, kind of saying that, like, nowadays it's kind of cool to say that Twilight Princess is just like an Ocarina of Time remake, right? I don't know. Like, that's kind of the thing nowadays, looking back at it, that I hear a lot. And I love Twilight Princess, and I think it doesn't get enough credit. But I hear a lot of people saying that as if they're undermining what Twilight Princess is. But Twilight Princess was new, and it added a lot. You could turn into a wolf, and with that came, you could hone your senses, and you had this type of like detective mode that wasn't seen in a lot of games until then. It was very experimental, and I don't know, like, what it did with its story had never been done in a Zelda game before, to have like a linear story that was that well, that had that much depth. It was incredibly cinematic, and, you know, in all those senses, it's very different from Ocarina of Time. And yet that's just kind of how Zelda fans see it. But it was still like, you know, I think that just to use that comparison, the point that I'm making is that, like, if those games are as close to each other as the fans kind of like saying that they are, they're still incredibly different. So I guess even when the Zelda series looks stagnant, it's not stagnant. That's what I'm saying. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Maybe I didn't make that point well, but all this to say, Zelda is cool. I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling, but we're making some progress here. You can see I've kind of copied and pasted the buildings around, working on some farmland. I'm excited to get more into that and figure out, because I need to do some research, I guess, and see if there's, I don't know that there's any farms like in the base game of the Wind Waker. Off the top of my head, I feel like I should know this as the world's biggest Wind Waker fan. Like, I'm just like wondering, like, is there a small garden here and there? There's some like patches of dirt like on Outset Island, but I don't think there's really anything growing there besides like grass. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure that there is a place that's like a farm in Wind Waker. I was just thinking if there's like a place where I can pull like a crop asset to use as a basis for farms. That's really what I was wondering. And I might just kind of make my own plants or for that kind of thing. I was just thinking aloud. Anyway, you know, I know Wind Waker like the back of my hand, right? And yet there's still things I have to go and double check. That's just how it is, and it's nice to be in that position. There are livestock pens, I know, like in those kinds of farms in Wind Waker. But I was just wondering if there's like places where like plants grow in a kind of separated off area. And off the top of my head, I don't know. But anyway, we're making good progress. Let's see if there's any other comments I can respond to. I like this one. This is from Spiriton, said, not sure what you're working on or who you are, but I have to say this was very relaxing to just put on the side while doing other stuff. Keep up the good work. I love that. I really enjoy watching like Adam Savage's like videos. He does these like hour-long builds, one-day builds, he calls them. And the video will usually be over an hour. And it's just like a video of him in his workshop, like crafting something. And I would love to elicit that kind of feeling in my modeling videos, which is why like I think time lapses are cool. And it's nice to be able to see more progress done in one video. But I also like the idea of going back to like just watching me work live, and just getting a taste for what it looks like in the moment. And you can just kind of be with me in the process as it's happening. This kind of video, I think you get to see a lot get done, but it's also kind of removed. And comment down below what you think, what you guys think, if you want one or the other or want to see both, and see those kinds of experiments on the channel. Cause I'm down for doing both, and I like the idea of doing either, but just comment and let me know. Yeah, here we go. This one, I really like this, and I responded to this one too. This one said, in love with this so far. Hope once the model is done, someone makes a mod out of this. It'd be fantastic. Have you thought if you might make any caves or dungeons after finishing the overworld? And then they followed up and said, hell, I might just have to learn programming modeling myself if no one else bites. Yeah, that'd be fun. And I commented, that's a great idea. I'd love to keep tinkering away at it even after the overworld is finished. Caves and dungeons would be a great next step. That feels like a very corporate response. I apologize. I want to be personable. And I feel like that answer wasn't personable enough. But that's why I'm responding to it here with my voice. Because, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Because really, like, maybe I haven't, like, said this before, but as far as, like, what I'm thinking, my plan is, like, yeah, to finish the overworld and be able to say, like, yeah, here's a finished version of the map. It might take a little while to get there, but I'd like to be able to get to that point. But there'll still be things to add, and I'd like to keep working on it. And I don't see, even when there's a version of it that's quote-unquote finished, and you can, like, look at the whole world and it looks complete, there'll still be new details to add. And I think caves and more dungeons and locations, there's always more stuff to add. But anyway, let's take a look at this time lapse here. You can see that I finished the village, and here's just another look at the world, as a whole, to see where the current progress is at. Just to wrap it up real quick, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see y'all in future videos.